The moment Daniel looked up from his coffee and saw the woman walking toward him, his breath froze, not because she was stunning, but because she looked completely out of place. Her dress was soaked and smeared with mud, her hair tied back in a messy ponytail, and she was holding a pair of muddy shoes in her hand. For a split second, he assumed she must have mistaken him for someone else. This couldn't be the woman he was meeting. This couldn't be the blind date his friend insisted would change his life. Daniel, a man accustomed to polished surfaces, punctual schedules, and people who looked like they stepped out of a boardroom, felt irritation rising. He was already ready to stand up and walk away. But then she came closer, and he saw something in her eyes, something exhausted, vulnerable, and quietly determined, that made him pause. If you believe in kindness, compassion, and second chances, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Everyday Heroes. Your support helps us bring more emotional real-life stories to you. As she reached the table, her chest rose and fell as though she had run a marathon. Daniel noticed how she hesitated, gripping the back of the chair as though unsure if she even deserved to sit down. Her dress, once clearly beautiful, was torn at the hem, the mud stains climbing like dried shadows up her legs. She whispered a soft apology, and though Daniel didn't interrupt, he could feel the wall inside him beginning to crack. She looked like a storm he didn't understand, and he wasn't a man who liked surprises. But fate has its own way of rearranging lives. Her name was Lila, and while she sat there trying to steady herself, Daniel couldn't shake the sense that something heavy had happened before she arrived. She wasn't trying to gain sympathy. She wasn't even explaining herself. She was just trying to breathe. Daniel, who had spent years surrounded by polished people with perfect intentions masking selfish motives, suddenly felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, curiosity without calculation. He finally asked her what happened, and the story that unfolded felt like a cascade of setbacks that would have broken most people. She had lost her wallet in the morning, spilled coffee on her only decent dress, and taken a bus that broke down halfway to the river cafe. Instead of giving up, she walked the remaining kilometers. A stray dog, frightened by traffic, nearly fell into a ditch, and without thinking, she climbed down to pull it out, explaining the mud that covered her dress. She didn't show him bruises or ask for grace, she simply told the truth, as though she owed it to herself to be honest even in humiliation. Daniel, sitting across from her, realized his initial judgment came from a life where appearances dictated value. But this woman, covered in mud yet carrying herself with quiet dignity, felt more real than anyone he had met in years. While she spoke, he observed the small details, the faint tremble in her fingers when she reached for the water glass, the determination in her voice as she tried not to let embarrassment swallow her, the exhaustion under her eyes mixed with a stubborn spark. She wasn't trying to impress him. She wasn't here to charm a millionaire. She was simply keeping a promise she had made, to show up. As they continued talking, Daniel learned that she worked 2 jobs, cared for her bedridden mother, and rarely did anything for herself. The blind date wasn't something she usually agreed to, she had almost cancelled 10 times. But she told herself that life couldn't change if she never stepped outside of the walls she'd built around her heart. So even after everything fell apart that morning, she forced herself to keep going. And for the first time in years, Daniel felt something soften inside him. He saw not the mud on her dress but the strength that carried her through each day. He realized how easily he could have walked away, missing the one person who made him feel something genuine. The sun dipped lower across the river, casting warm gold over the wooden deck, and Daniel found himself smiling, something rare and almost unfamiliar. Lila's presence shifted something in the space between them, replacing awkwardness with an unexpected comfort. The longer they talked, the more Daniel felt pieces of himself rearranging. He told her things he hadn't shared in years, about his loneliness despite success, his fear of being used, and the emptiness he felt even in crowded rooms. She listened as though every word mattered. Hours passed, unnoticed. Birds skimmed across the water, the breeze softened, and the world around them quieted, as though giving space to 2 people who were slowly learning each other's scars. Daniel couldn't remember the last time he connected with someone without pretense or expectations. And Lila, despite everything she had endured before arriving, glowed with a kind of honesty that felt like a rare gift. By the time the sky turned amber, Daniel made a quiet decision: he wasn't letting this story end at one difficult day. When she stood to leave, embarrassed once again by the state she was in, Daniel gently stopped her and said he wanted to see her again. Not because he pitied her, but because she made him feel human in ways he hadn't felt in years. Their next meetings were different, filled with laughter, long conversations, and a growing warmth neither of them tried to rush. Lila's life didn't magically become easier, and Daniel didn't suddenly fix everything, but together they built something steady, honest, and healing. In the end, Daniel often said that the day she showed up covered in mud was the day his world finally made sense. And Lila would smile, because she knew that sometimes life tests you right before it gifts you something extraordinary. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe to Everyday Heroes. Your support means everything. Before you go, please comment below. I believe in second chances.